Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra, Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have a news and notes segment for you all and a United States women's national team versus Uzbekistan preview. Before we get into everything, a quick reminder to follow us on Twitter for all news and updates at Attacking Third. We also have a TikTok and we're also on Instagram, so follow us across all three platforms at Attacking Third for highlights, cool graphics, breaking news, and so much more. And you can also catch us on video at youtube.com/attacking third. International window is here, Lisa, but we still got plenty of soccer to talk about. How are you doing today?
I am good. Yes, plenty of soccer happening. It's pouring rain today in Philadelphia, and my neighbors are being loud, and this is working from home. So here we are, but no soccer, no domestic soccer for me to watch this weekend. Instead, just tuning into Concacaf qualifiers, UEFA qualifiers, doing all of the things, staying inside because of the rain. How are you, Sandra?
Yeah, same, honestly. It's definitely like April showers kind of vibes
Yeah.
going on right now for sure. And yeah, we're paying attention to the things that are going on outside, both in Philly and Chicago, because that's what happens when you work from home. But I'm with you, like not watching the NWSL Challenge Cup because that took a brief pause for this
Mhm.
international window, which is a good time to let everybody know if for whatever reason you've missed any Challenge Cup matches. It's at the halfway mark right now. When it comes back after this international window, there will be about three more rounds of matches to go through. And if you need to catch up on any action that you might have missed, you can watch matches on replay at Paramount Plus. Or if you're just looking for the highlights, you can head on over to Attacking Third YouTube and you can get all the highlights of match packages there. But you can also watch CONCACAF W qualifier matches on Paramount Plus, which are already in the mix. Games are going to be going through April 6th, all the way through the 12th. And I'm hyped for that as well. Six
Mhm.
groups going head to head here to sort of see which of the six teams are going to be joining the United States women's national team and Canada in July for the CONCACAF W Championship to ultimately decide who's going to advance to the 2023 World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. So keep an eye on those matches. Go to
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, circle some that you want to take a look at. I got a feeling that a lot of these are going to come down to that April 12th date. There's a ton of groups, all of them, quite frankly, that kind of have a number one and a number two kind of going
Mhm.
head to head. A lot of teams who are level, those number ones and number twos on points, but goal differentials are kind of coming into play in terms of separating the two from the group winners. So a lot of these teams who are ranked number one, number two within their respective groups are going to be meeting on April 12th. So look out for like Jamaica and Dominican Republic. Look out for
Yes.
Mexico and Puerto Rico. So check those out. It's gonna be a riveting finish, I think. CONCACAF W qualifiers. People should check it out if they get the chance.
Yeah, it's really good competition. And I know a lot of people say, like, I just want to watch the US or Canada, the heavy hitters, but these are the good games to be watching because this is how the sport grows.
Oh
And this
yeah.
is developing younger players and more experienced players across all of these different nations. And the United States and Canada will be playing against these
Oh yeah.
teams come July. So you want to know your competition. If you're cheering for the US, you want to know who they're going up against, what players are going to give the back line for the US some trouble, anything that's going to happen. These are fun games. They're really fun to watch, especially for me. I don't have a lot of care into who wins. I just am watching them for fun, and that's very enjoyable. It's
Look,
very enjoyable to watch a soccer game and not have to be analyzing it as
yes,
much.
I was gonna say when you get the opportunity to do just view a soccer game as like a neutral, there's a certain like calmness that comes into play,
Yeah.
a different level of enjoyment, I
You
think.
just want goals, you just want chaos, you want good soccer, you want development, and that's honestly what you're getting watching these CONCACAF W qualifiers, so tune in.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if you're looking across some of the rosters across this CONCACAF W qualifiers, you can take a look at certain national teams and see a ton of NWSL players
Yes.
represented throughout them. Shout out to the Reggae Girls, Alison Swaby. You can see with Angel City, Maria Sanchez used to dash and representing Mexico, and a number of others as well from Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic as well. So take a look at those teams if you get a chance. We also have on Paramount Plus selective UEFA women's qualifiers, and we're going to react a little bit to a game that took place ahead of us getting together and recording this. We saw Norway versus Kosovo go head to head, and the return of Ada Hegerberg to the Norway's national team, and quite the comeback. Got herself a Hattie in this match against Kosovo. Definitely marking her return, to say the least. But a 5-year absence
Mhm.
finally coming to an end, and just feels a little different, right? Kind of watching these qualifiers take place and having Hedgeberg be part of the mix once more.
We actually spoke with Ada Hegerberg about this and making her return to the Norway national team, and
Yep.
she admitted, she was like, "I've been working really hard. This is
Yep.
something I want. This is why I'm competing so well in Champions League," and that's been her focus, is to get back playing for club and for country after a bit of an injury she faced there. But yeah, 3 goals in this match for her. Norway ends up winning 5-1, but the goals from her were first,
Top notch.
second, and then fourth. Fantastic.
Yeah, top notch. Again, if you missed it for whatever reason, you can rewatch it on Paramount Plus or head over to the highlights at Attacking Third YouTube. Let's get into some news and notes across NWSL. Again, despite no matches happening during the international week, that doesn't mean the NWSL stops. It keeps on moving. It keeps on going. And there has been the announcement of some player additions across the league to certain teams. Let's start off with Angel City here, announcing that they have signed French international Clarisse Lebihan to a 2-year deal for an undisclosed amount, and will be taking a international spot amongst that roster there. Chicago Red Stars also announcing a signing of their own, signing Australian forward Chelsea Darber, a 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd year. Coming out of Australia, was with Adelaide United, scored 10 goals and 3 assists during the semifinal run there. And goalkeeper Almut Schultz to Angel City as well, German international, 1-year contract with an option, will be joining the team a little bit later, starting after the Euros. Rebecca Holloway announced to Racing Louisville out of Birmingham City a 2-year deal. And Janine Becky out of Manchester City going to Portland Thorns, a 3-year deal with the Thorns. They acquired her with a trade via Racing Louisville, who had her player rights in exchange for $75,000 in allocation money, and completed transfer with Man City in exchange for additional allocation money. And finally, Valerie Govin to North Carolina Courage, another international, 1-year deal with Houston. Lots of player movement happening for NWSL. I like a number of these moves, quite frankly. Angel City,
Yeah.
kind of making more of them than some other teams. I mean, you got to wonder a little bit, Lisa. Are they taking a look at what's going on in the Challenge Cup and saying, "Hey, we got to bulk up some areas of the roster here"?
I mean, even before Challenge Cup started, when you looked at Angel City's roster, there's no depth. They don't have that. The rotations off the bench are very, very slim. And so this needed to happen. I think getting Clarice Lebahan is a forward, a French international. That's going to really help Angel City provide different looks in the front line, adding depth to their goalkeeper position in Amos Schultz. Those are really necessary for Angel City. I imagine they're going to continue to make these kinds of movements and look at the roster depth. And yes, seeing how this Challenge Cup has gone, but these conversations have been in the works for these trades to come, as now they're being announced. And now it's some of the players are starting to come over, but in the case of goalkeeper Schultz, not yet after the Euros. Yeah, I mean, these are big for them, of course. I think that the biggest trade for me is Janie Becky from Man City to Portland, and using Racing Louisville as the catch in between this trade, because it was Man City to Louisville and then Louisville to Portland.
Right. Just to catch people up, for people who weren't aware, during their expansion draft in 2021, Racing Louisville selected Janine Becking her player rights, but unfortunately she was still playing overseas, and this was just something where they're sitting on these player rights. So it looks like they opted to make a move with them instead of trying to convince her
Yes.
to come on over stateside.
And it's a 3-year deal for the Thorns, so development player there for sure. So to kind of get her in, get used to formation, Coach Wilkinson, the players there, and the culture in Portland, and then develop this player in the NWSL. But lots of movement happening, lots of new faces across the NWSL. We'll see when we see them, when they all report, when they get on the pitch. That's another question. When are they coming?
It just sort of feels like a lot of them too are, you look at them and we sort of singled out Angel City here for this moment. But I mean, an argument could be made for each of these clubs and their recent signings or acquisitions in terms of looking at areas of depth, right? So even when we're looking at the Chicago Red Stars, for example, the fact that this is a forward that they're bringing into the mix and to have and sort of bolster up their forward core as well. The options there have been quite slim for some time. Kalia Watt has been rehabilitating from an ACL injury. There's an unknown return date for that because, of course, they're not going to rush that back. But Rachel Hill has been dealing with a hip injury since the start of the Challenge Cup, and there hasn't been an update in terms of her progress either. And Mal Pugh is tearing it up, right? In Challenge Cup, she's leading the Red Stars. She's leading the Challenge Cup with 4 goals, and that's lights out performance, but you can't just sort of rely too heavily on that. So the options were pretty slim there, and it looks like they tried to go out and maybe add a little bit more depth to that forward line as well. So it'll be interesting to see what she brings to this Red Star side. But again, another one of these signings where it's unknown where they're going to actually join up with the team. Things like a visa process has to get cleared before welcoming some of these players into the league. So we will be keeping an eye on them until everything gets cleared. Let's maybe look at some other NWSL news that isn't 100% player related. Although it is kind of, because it's kits, and we're going to be talking about players who are going to be wearing this kits. Houston Dash announcing their alternate/away kit, the City of Football kit. Some folks I think were maybe kind of confused when they saw different hashtags about NWSL clubs and what they were going to be running with. And for Houston, they're referring to their hashtag as City of Football, and their new away kit kind of reflects that. It's homage to the city's flag. You could see a lot of cool photos here. If you're listening to this as audio, check us out on YouTube. You could see some photos of this away kit. You could see the bright blue star going across a white kit with some sort of yellow and orange accents alongside the sleeves and in the collar as well. So I'm excited to see Houston take the pitch eventually in these away kits, sort of celebrating, commemorating, and playing homage to the city and 10th anniversary of the league as well.
Yes, a lot of the kits that are coming out from the clubs are playing homage to the 10th year of the NWSL. We saw that with OL Reign and their kits that they pulled out. And now in these Houston kits that they have a little logo in the corner that says NWSL 10th year, 2022. They have a lot of stars on it. I actually really like this kit. We've seen a lot of different variations of stars on soccer jerseys, whether it's in Orlando or Houston had them before, but they're oftentimes little. Chicago, they've got the red stars across their chest. But I like these stars because they're big and they're all over. I don't know. This was fun. I wanted to talk about the kits. This was a good time. I like they have like yellow trimming on their sleeves too.
Yep.
I like that. I'm a fan.
The stars are bright, right? In Texas. And now everyone's going to get that stuck in their head. So hopefully you find a way to finish it and sing it. Then we're going to take a wrap right now on NWSL news and action. We're going to start transitioning a little bit into what this international break is about. It is about bigger international matches happening, right? We started at the top of this episode with CONCACAF and UEFA qualifiers, chatted a little bit about some NWSL news, and now we got to take a dive into the United States women's national team. They're going to be playing some matches during this international window. They're going to be facing Uzbekistan, the first time that these two programs have ever gone head-to-head in their respective histories. Uzbekistan is currently ranked 45 overall in the FIFA rankings and number 7 in Asia. There are 2 friendlies that are going to be taking place, one on April 9th and the other on April 12th. Columbus, Ohio at lower.com field, and Philadelphia, Chester, Pennsylvania at Subaru Park. I know you're excited about that, Lisa.
I'm very excited about that. They're coming to Philly. I'll be at the game.
Right
Let me
on, right
know if
on.
anyone will be there. Let
Yeah,
me
I
know.
love
Tweet
it.
at me. I'll come say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a chance for these players to play. It's competition. And in these windows, these FIFA windows, the United States needs to be playing games and looking at the Euros that are happening, looking at domestic play that's happening in Europe, the competition that the United States and Blacko and Anofsky can get. There's also COVID protocols still in place.
Yep.
This is fine. It's competition. It's Uzbekistan. Yes, they are ranked 45, but there are still plenty of things that the U.S. team can learn, especially when you look at the roster that Blacko and Anofsky has called in. There are so many younger players in this group because of that. It's necessary for them to get experience, to get practice, to get consistency together. Another note that was made after the roster initially dropped, midfielder Sam Mewis is not attending the April training camp. She's working through that knee issue in Kansas City, so she's going to stay with the training staff there, continue to rehab and get through that. And she's not being replaced on the roster, which is something that has happened in the past when players can't come in. Andonovsky calls in a supplemental player, but not happening with Mewis. So that's one less experienced midfielder in this crew. And now it's just a bunch of young kids. And then Kelly O'Hara is one of the more veteran ones, Lindsay Herrera. And then I'm going to throw Rose Lavelle up there. She's got a lot of caps to her name. So that's what these friendlies are about, getting game experience, because there's only 4 matches before World Cup qualifiers happen. These April friendlies, and then just 2 more after that.
Yeah, and honestly, we've been talking about Samantha Mewis for a little while in terms of the Challenge Cup and her performances with Kansas City Current, and we all noticed right away that she was on a bit of a minutes restriction, right? She's still working her way back, and we have seen from her 2 matches that sort of had each 45-minute increments, and was named to this national team roster, but I guess everybody just felt it was in her best interest to continue her rehabilitation and getting more consistent minutes at the NWSL level. And quite frankly, when the roster was announced, the midfield core for these 2 friendlies against Uzbekistan was the more crowded of the position. And losing her for these 2 friendlies, I don't think they're going to, be missing out on too much depth. They had 8 midfielders, and now they're going to have 7 to sort of rotate between the 2 games. And quite frankly, that means maybe another player is going to be getting some minutes that might have gone to a player like Mewis. But for folks who are unfamiliar with the entire roster, let me just go ahead and run it down for you very quickly. 3 goalkeepers: Bella Bigsby, Aubrey Kingsbury, Alyssa Nair. 7 defenders: Alana Cook, Abigail Kemper, Amani Dorsey, Emily Fox, Sophia Huerta, Naomi Girma, Kelly O'Hara. Midfielders 7 now with Lindsay Horan, Jalen Howell, Rose Lavelle, Katerina Macario, Christy Mewis, Ashley Sanchez, and Andy Sullivan. And forwards with 5: Ashley Hatch, Mallory Pugh, Margaret Purse, Trinity Rodman, and Sophia Smith. So when we're taking a look at the roster as it stands, and knowing that they're going to be going up against Uzbekistan, we've chatted a lot about this roster. We reacted to it when it dropped, right, Lisa? And then we went ahead and had a couple of awesome episodes with our United States Women's National Team Hour featuring, Lori Lindsay, featuring Jill Lloyden. But now it's me and you, homie. It's me and you,
The
homie.
OGs.
It's me and you, homie. So we're going to talk about USWNT as they get ready to go up against Uzbekistan. And we're actually going to be reintroducing the mailbag segment in a little type of way, because we want to shout out folks who ask us similar questions that kind of mirror the segments that we do on here. But shout out to Lizzie_C11. She asked us who we would both choose as a starting 11 for the United States Women's National Team right now. So, Lisa, with this roster in front of us, who are the 11 that you would like to see get a run out there against Uzbekistan?
I love doing this. Thanks, Lizzie_C11, because I love putting together a roster. I love looking at who's being called in, the changes that can happen, personnels, formations, everything like that. So we're going to start in the back. Goalkeepers between Bella Bigsby, Aubrey Kingsbury, and Alyssa Nair. I want to see Kingsbury get a cap. Bigsby and Kingsbury, neither of them have a cap. They're both searching for their first one. Kingsbury was called into camp before. I believe she went to Australia for those friendlies, but Casey Murphy outplaying Kingsbury just did such a phenomenal job in that first match that Vlachmannovsky awarded her with 90 minutes in the second match as well, which I don't think is a bad thing because Casey Murphy was probably going to be the number 2 goalkeeper heading into these World Cup qualifiers. She's dealing with a bit of an injury with North Carolina Courage. She hasn't played yet for club, so not being called into this. I want Kingsbury in the back line. I want Kingsbury to get minutes, get a cap, get experience, even against a team like Uzbekistan that may not apply a lot of attacking power and presence against Kingsbury. It's still a chance for her to be involved in the possession for the team, be a vocal leader in the back. So I have Kingsbury in the back line. Looking at the defenders that were called in, no Becky Sauerbrunn, no Tierna Davidson, no Crystal Dunn. Of course, none of these players are playing for their NWSL clubs. So along the back line, I want to see Emily Fox, Alana Cook, Naomi Girma, and Sofia Huerta. I really want to see Naomi Girma get time. I think that we would see her play alongside Alana Cook. However, it's not necessary. I don't really need to see that. I think Dahlkemper and Girma could be a really good pairing. They played together for San Diego in that back line. I think that center back pairing could be strengthened in this national team window and playing against Uzbekistan. But I want Girma to get minutes because having depth at that position with experience is necessary. I mean, it's unfortunate, but Tierna Davidson just getting injured and now being out, she was the next one to step up. She has already stepped up and been that leader in the back line for Vlachmannovsky, and now she's not there. And I think that Alana Cook has done a really nice job for Vlachmannovsky and for OL Reign, that she deserves that start in the middle, in the center back pairing as well. And then Fox and Huerta on the outsides. Looking at the midfield, I want to see Andy Sullivan holding that down. Really the only other player listed in this midfield group that could play that is Jalen Howe. So I want Jalen Howe to get minutes. I don't think we'll see Howell get a start, though, in either of the matches. And then I want to see Ashley Sanchez out of Washington Spirit in that attacking midfield position alongside. I'm going to go Rose Lavelle here. I initially had said Lindsay Horan, which I do want to see that combination as well, but I want to see Lavelle and Sanchez and how they play together in that attacking position. And then up front, I want to see Pugh, Hatch, and Smith. So Mallory Pugh, Ashley Hatch, and Sophia Smith. Of course, Kat Macario, I also want to see up there, and I think we will. She'll probably get the start at that 9, but I really want to see how Hatch can play alongside Pugh and Smith, because the differences in their tendencies as forwards could make the other one shine. And the difference between Hatch and Kat Macario is huge in that 9 role. I mean, Kat Macario is one that's going to be a bit more withheld. She's going to want to drop back into the midfield, receive the ball at her feet, whereas Hatch is really that high number 9 that can get long balls served into her, drop it back, and then curl off, flick the ball on over top. They're very different types of players. So I think we'll see both of that, but that's my 11, Pugh, Hatch, and Smith up top.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hardly have differences in terms of what you're suggesting for a starting 11 against Uzbekistan. I think if this game starts tomorrow and you want a starting 11 and we're just looking at this one specific game, I really want to see Kingsbury get a start as well. I think that Alyssa Nair has been doing awesome in NWSL with Chicago Red Stars, and she has had a few games with the national team since going out with injury back in the Olympics. So for the opposition in front of them, I would like to see Kingsbury get a start. In terms of a back line and who's unavailable, they're out with Tierna Davidson. So for the center back duo, I would like to see Alana Cook. I would like to see Naomi Girma. And the outside backs, I want to continue seeing Sofia Huerta out in that fullback position. But I would also like to see Amani Dorsey. We've seen Emily Fox coming into play and getting some minutes as well. And I think we're going to continue to see that over the course of these two friendlies. But in terms of starting a game and developing over time as minutes progress throughout a 90-minute game, I want to see Amani Dorsey. I feel like there have been moments in the past with this collective group of players that Andonovski has called in. She's kind of been bit by the injury bug at times, and unfortunately, the timing hasn't worked out for her to get a start. But she's been doing fantastic with
Mhm.
MFC in Challenge Cup, so I would like to see if that translates onto the field against a team like Uzbekistan. So for my back line, if this game's starting tomorrow, I want to see Huerta, I want to see Cook, I want to see Girma, I want to see Dorsey. In terms of a midfield, I'm with you on Sullivan. She's got to take that role. That's just, I think she might be the healthiest of some players to be able to sit kind of in that kind of defensive mid role. But I want to continue seeing the relationship between Macario and between Lavelle. So I got them as starts as well. We saw just very brief glimpses of it. The chemistry was budding, and unfortunately, there was a little bit of a knock that Lavelle ended up picking up that kind of kept her out for the remainder of the matches there. And she believes, and we saw Katerina Macario kind of take off a little bit towards the latter stages of that tournament. So I want to see their continued developed chemistry alongside each other. And in terms of a front line, I'm with you 100%, Lisa. I don't see how you go into these games against Uzbekistan and you do not start Smith and Pugh on the wings and Hatch as your sort of target center forward. She's showing us that in NWSL, going off of 2021 now into 2022, that this is a player who just can sort of be there at the right time and has the ability to kind of read her teammates' movement very well and sort of become this open target for them and be able to kind of be an even forward, hit you with a left, hit you with a right,
Mhm.
scoring off with her noggin, getting some headers there. And I think if you're players like Pugh or Smith who have the ability to be technical on the ball, dribble inside the box, create open space, you're going to want a player that can continue to keep that movement as well. So I would love to see that trio in some capacity with Smith, Hatch, and Pugh to get this start. But I won't be surprised if maybe there's a full 11 that Andonovski has for each of these games. I don't know if we're going to see a
I could
player.
see that.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see a player build into 90 minutes, like, oh, come off the bench and get 30 minutes and then you'll get 90 this next match. I would hope that the coaching staff is presenting some challenges to these players, because one of the first things that people kind of locked in on when these friendlies got announced was the fact that it was against 48th, 45th ranked Uzbekistan. And there was kind of the mindset that, well, this means that there's probably going to still be a younger ish kind of roster in place. And that's what we're still continuing to see when Ledanovsky and his coaching staff. And if that's the case, you have to present challenges to these players. And I hope one of those challenges is kind of looking at the opposition ahead of them and
Right?
taking it serious and saying, look, unfortunately, due to some circumstances, this is the team that we are playing in front of us. Be respectful about it. Take it seriously. Don't think that you have to play down a level. And if you do, if we notice that, that's a problem. If you cannot show up on match day and perform against Uzbekistan, we got to keep it moving. So I hope that this is some of the messaging that they're presenting when it comes to presenting challenges to this current roster in training camps with the United States women's national team. And we talked a little bit about in some of these episodes with the United States women's national team hour when we were reacting to the roster. And I asked Lori Lindsay and I said, if any of these games come out with a low score line, 1-0 example, is that a disappointment? And we both were in agreement. Yes, that's
Yes.
absolutely going to be a disappointment. So we'll see what happens. I'm with you mostly on the starting 11s. I'm 0% shocked by that we kind of have similar
I know. I
nuance,
know.
in terms of seeing players out on the pitch. But I'm
So
excited for it.
I want to ask you before we stray away from this. Who player rotation? Say in the first match, we see rotations, whether it's at 45 or even 60 minutes. What rotations do you want to see or that early
Yeah.
on, whether it's at 45 or 60, the first one's off the bench? Who do you want to see?
I gotta say maybe something with the forward core. There's
Mhm.
so few of them. I think that you want to try to get as much time for some of those players. So maybe you're bringing a Pew off for a Purse, or a Rodman in for a Smith or vice versa. However
Yeah.
However you want to see which other side of the wing you want to see these players, and that's where I'm going to be looking at first. And I'm going to be looking at that first, especially if there is a plan for rotation at halftime or at the hour mark. And if at halftime and at the hour mark it's a scoreless game
Mm.
still, or if there's still only, or maybe it's just a 1-goal game, I'm absolutely making that move quickly, and maybe having a different look in the attack, versus maybe switching out somebody from the back line or switching out somebody from the midfield. But that can change. We got to see the game. And maybe when we come on here and do a little bit of a recap, we'll talk about things should have got switched up in the midfield. Who knows? But we'll see. I think if there is a game plan in place or scenario where there is a 45-minute, a halftime, or an hour mark kind of rotation, I think it's got to start with the attacking line.
I think that they have that plan in place and they have those different scenarios and how they're going to react to them and what they're going to change, and then also be able to react on the fly to what players are doing. But I agree. I think switching up the front line is more important, because then if there is an Ashley Sanchez sitting in the midfield, how then does that change her play if she doesn't have Pugh and Hatch and Smith in front of her, but she has Macario and Purse and Rodman? How does Sanchez play differently? And I'm interested to see the combinations between Hatch Sanchez and Hatch Rodman, Rodman Sanchez, those trio, because they do play together every single day for Washington Spirit. So how does that translate to this? I think we could see a really good translation and a really good relationship between those types of players, but it's also a different kind of technique and different formation and different tendencies with this squad. And then also when you're playing alongside a Pugh and Smith up top for Hatch, that changes how she plays, because she's not alongside a McKeown and a Rodman that she is every single week in with Washington Spirit. So I'm really excited to tune into these matches and watch them on Saturday and then next Tuesday.
Yeah, and we'll be back with so much more. I love doing this with you whenever there's a pair of women's national team friendlies. I'm sure in the future we're going to be doing more of these as well. Thank you, everybody, for presenting us with the questions or different scenarios. And thank you all, of course, so much for listening to Attacking Third. Follow us on Twitter and now on TikTok and Instagram at Attacking Third for so much more. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. We're also available as videos. Subscribe at youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we'll be back next week with so much more. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking.